It was 7:03 a.m. when the sirens cut through the calm of our quiet cul-de-sac, and they were coming for us. Sophia jolted from her chair as red and blue lights splashed across the living room. Out on the front lawn, Karen, our self-appointed queen of the HOA, stood like a conquering general flanked by 15 neighbors with phones raised like bayonets. She'd done it. She'd called the cops on my entire family. For what? For ignoring her insane fines. $200 because our grass dared to grow a quarter-inch taller than her sacred guidelines. 150 for a parking violation she fabricated out of thin air. We hadn't paid a cent, and that burned her. She wasn't satisfied with letters or warnings. No Karen wanted a spectacle, a takedown. Finally, these criminals will learn respect, she announced like she'd just cracked a mafia case. She thought she was about to humiliate us in front of the whole neighborhood. She had no idea what kind of family she was dealing with. The truth is, this circus didn't start today. It started months ago, back when we thought suburban life meant peace and backyard barbecues, not psychological warfare with a woman wielding a clipboard like a weapon. That morning had been perfect, or at least it was supposed to be. Golden sunlight stretched across freshly paved streets. Sprinklers hissed, kids rode bikes, and retirees waved from their porches. My dad, Henry, was in his element, 68 years old, retired after decades of government service, tending to his hydrangeas with military precision. Gardening wasn't just a hobby for him, it was therapy. Every snip of his pruning shears was a reminder that he'd earned this calm after years of chaos. I just pulled into the driveway after a week-long business trip, the kind my neighbors assume was filled with client meetings and PowerPoints. Let them think that. I'd spent the last 7 days freezing my tail off in a surveillance van, listening to wiretaps. But in this neighborhood, I was Lucas Bennett, single dad financial consultant and part-time mystery man. My 12-year-old daughter Layla was inside doing math homework, probably wondering why her dad was always in and out like some restless ghost. From the outside, we looked like the picture of American normalcy. Grandpa with his garden, a hard-working single parent, a smart kid who loved science fairs and TikTok dances. What could possibly disturb that illusion, Karen Walsh? That's what. You know the type. The HOA president who takes community standards as a personal crusade, marching across our lawn in designer athleisure that probably cost more than my monthly grocery bill, armed with a clipboard like it was a badge of divine authority. Blonde bob, reflective sunglasses, and a face stretched into that smile, tight controlled and sharp enough to cut glass. She didn't knock. She didn't greet. She just announced, "We need to discuss your property violations," loud enough for the entire zip code to hear. I watched from the porch as curtains twitched in half a dozen houses. Great. A free show for the neighborhood. Karen clicked open her measuring tape like a gunslinger drawing a weapon. Your grass measures 3.2 inches. Our standard is 3.0 max. That's a $200 fine. Scribble, next page. Your vehicle was parked 2 inches beyond your driveway boundary last night, a $150 violation. More scribbling. And this, she jabbed a manicured finger toward a garden statue of a sleeping dog, is unauthorized decor. Another $100. Henry listened patiently, hands folded behind his back like a man who had negotiated with terrorists and wasn't about to lose his cool over ornamental lawn art. His voice, when it came, was calm. Too calm. "Ma'am, I think there's been a misunderstanding. That was gasoline on her fire." Misunderstanding Karen's voice shot up an octave. "I don't make mistakes, Mr. Bennett. Do you have any idea how your disregard for community rules affects property values? I've maintained order here for 5 years. People like you, people who think they're above the rules, are a threat to everything we've built." Before I could step in, Layla appeared at the door, drawn by the shouting. And that's when Karen made her biggest mistake. She crouched down, looked my daughter in the eye, and said, "Sweetheart, your grandpa needs to understand that rules apply to everyone, even people who think they're special." Henry's jaw tightened. I hadn't seen that expression in years, the one he used when someone crossed a line he couldn't ignore. Layla, bless her, spoke with the brutal honesty only kids can muster. Grandpa always follows rules. He used to work for the government catching bad guys who broke really important ones. Karen's eyes lit up like she'd struck oil. Government work? Oh, fascinating. What kind of government work teaches people to ignore legitimate authority? Her tone wasn't curiosity, it was interrogation. Henry's reply was measured, but I could see the storm behind his eyes. Various roles over the years, nothing relevant to lawn care. Smooth controlled, but Karen smelled blood. She started taking photos, our lawn, my car, the stupid garden statue, documenting everything like she was building a federal case. And the whole time, something gnawed at me. The precision, the obsessive attention to detail. This wasn't just a power hungry HOA president. This was someone running an operation. When she finally strutted off, heels clicking on the pavement, Henry turned to me, his face carved from stone. Lucas, he said, voice low enough that Layla couldn't hear, we need to talk. Inside. At the kitchen table, Henry dropped a bomb that made my stomach twist. That woman isn't just Karen Walsh. Her real name is Linda Ross. 25 years ago, I arrested her for laundering $2 million through fake charities. Kids died waiting for treatments because of her greed. I stared at him, trying to process the fact that my gardening, barbecue-loving father had once put away white-collar criminals. You were FBI, his eyes met mine. 30 years. Financial crimes. They called me the closer. Never lost a case. My pulse thudded in my ears, because now it was my turn to come clean. Dad, I'm not a financial consultant. I'm FBI too. I pulled out my badge, placed it on the table, like a confession. Special Agent Lucas Bennett, 8 years active duty. Henry's gaze flickered from the badge to my face, and for a moment, pride softened his features. Then reality settled back in. If she knows who we are, Lucas, this isn't an HOA dispute. This is a war. And just like that, the illusion of our quiet suburban life shattered into pieces. That night's sleep was out of the question. My mind kept replaying the look in Henry's eyes when he said her name. Linda Ross, a woman who stole millions from children's medical funds, who swore she'd make him pay. And now she was living 20 feet from our front door. This wasn't coincidence. This was strategy. By morning, Karen Linda had already escalated. I woke to a flood of notifications on the neighborhood app. Posts plastered with our address accusing us of impersonating federal agents to bully law-abiding citizens. She'd uploaded time-stamped photos of my car diagrams of suspicious activity patterns, even a thread questioning how I could afford my home without a visible business license. It was surgical, calculated, and it was working. Neighbors we'd waved to for years were suddenly side-eyeing us during their morning jogs. Betty, the sweet retiree from across the street, didn't wave back for the first time since we moved in. The digital pitchforks were out, and Karen was sharpening them. Around noon, Layla came running into my office, clutching her tablet. Dad, look. My stomach sank as I read the headline, Community Alert Family on Oak Ridge Lane claims FBI status to intimidate neighbors. Beneath it, a photo of me holding my badge from yesterday. The caption, anyone can print a fake ID. That's when I realized Karen wasn't just spreading rumors. She was laying the groundwork for something bigger, something that would make us pariahs in our own community. Henry paced the living room like a caged lion. She's not doing this alone, he muttered. Linda never worked solo. If she's running the same playbook as before, she's building an inner circle. He wasn't wrong. 2 hours later, our doorbell rang. Through the window, I saw Karen flanked by 2 neighbors. Tom, the guy who borrowed my jumper cables last winter, and Jennifer, the yoga mom from the corner house. Both looked like they'd rather be anywhere else but Karen. She radiated smug authority. Mr. Bennett, she said loud enough for half the block to hear. We have concerns. She held up a manila folder thick with printed screenshots. There's no business license on file for your so-called consulting firm. Your work schedule is irregular, and those vehicles in your driveway, very expensive for someone with no visible income. I stepped onto the porch, keeping my tone even. Karen, it's Linda, Henry said behind me, his voice like steel. Karen's smile froze just for a heartbeat. Then she recovered. Oh, so you do remember me? She purred, her eyes locking on him, with predatory delight. Took you long enough? Tom shifted uncomfortably. Maybe we should all just quiet. Karen snapped her gaze, never leaving ours. This community deserves transparency. We don't tolerate liars here. She was baiting us, and I knew it. Every word, every gesture, it was all theater for the cameras aimed from neighboring lawns. One wrong move, and we'd be the villains in her carefully scripted drama. So I played my card. Slowly, deliberately, I reached into my jacket and pulled out my badge. You want transparency? Here it is. I held it up for everyone to see. Special Agent Lucas Bennett, FBI Financial Crimes Division, badge number 5194. Call Quantico if you think it's fake. Tom's jaw dropped. Jennifer blinked like she'd walked into a TV show. But Karen, she just smiled wider. Oh, this is rich, she said, voice dripping with mockery. Impersonating a federal officer is a felony, Lucas. Shall I call the real FBI or maybe the media? They'd love to cover a story like this. Before I could respond, Henry stepped forward, his presence commanding even in retirement khakis. Go ahead, Linda. Call whoever you want. But when you do, make sure you tell them why you really moved here. Karen's mask slipped. For one fleeting second, the Queen of Oak Ridge Lane cracked, and I saw the fury simmering beneath. But she recovered fast. You think this is a game? She hissed low enough that only we could hear. You destroyed my life, 15 years in a cage because of you, and now I'm going to take everything from you, your reputation, your career, your family. By the time I'm done, you'll wish you stayed out of my neighborhood. She pivoted on her heel, tossing over her shoulder. See you at the emergency HOA meeting tonight. When the door clicked shut behind us, Henry exhaled slowly. She's not bluffing. That woman spent a decade plotting her revenge. Every HOA fine, every photo, every post. It's all part of a bigger play. Layla's voice was small, but steady. Dad, are we in danger? I crouched down to her level, forcing a calm I didn't feel. Not if I can help it. But the truth, my gut was screaming. Karen wasn't just trying to embarrass us. She was trying to destroy us systematically, publicly, and permanently, and she'd just raised the stakes. The HOA meeting that night didn't feel like a meeting. It felt like a trial, and we were the defendants. Betty's living room, usually the coziest spot on Oak Ridge Lane, had transformed into a makeshift courtroom. 14 neighbors sat shoulder to shoulder, clutching coffee cups like life preservers. Karen stood at the front, flanked by a projector and a stack of folders thick enough to choke a filing cabinet. Her eyes glittered under the lamplight, her smile sharp as a scalpel. Thank you for coming on such short notice, she began, a voice dripping with faux humility. We have an urgent matter that affects the safety and integrity of our entire community. Slide 1, a blown-up photo of our house. Slide 2, my badge. Slide 3, a spreadsheet of my irregular work hours. Karen clicked through each like she was prosecuting a federal case. These individuals claim to be federal agents, she said, letting the word claim linger like poison in the air. But real agents don't intimidate law-abiding citizens over property maintenance. Real agents don't hide their income or threaten community leaders. The murmurs started low, then built into an uneasy hum. Tom rubbed the back of his neck. Jennifer wouldn't meet my eyes. Even Betty, sweet, reasonable Betty, looked like she wasn't sure what to believe. Henry sat beside me, posture, straight, expression unreadable. I could almost hear the calculations spinning in his head. Every person in this room was a potential asset or a liability. Karen launched into her next slide a list of red flags. Unverified employment. Expensive vehicles inconsistent with declared income. Aggressive responses to HOA inquiries. These patterns, she said, pacing like a trial attorney, are classic indicators of fraudulent behavior. We cannot allow criminals to infiltrate our neighborhood under the guise of authority. She paused for effect, letting the weight of her words settle over the room. Then she delivered the hammer blow. I've already contacted federal authorities to verify Mr. Bennett's credentials. If he's legitimate, fine. But if he's not, she let the sentence dangle like a noose. The room buzzed with tension. People shifted in their seats, stealing glances at us like we were ticking bombs. That was when something inside me snapped, not in anger, but in clarity. For days I'd been reacting, playing defense, letting Linda dictate the terms. No more. I stood slow and deliberate, letting the room fall silent. You want transparency? I said, pulling my badge from my jacket and placing it on the coffee table with a satisfying thunk. There it is, badge number 5124, Financial Crimes Division. Call Quantico right now if you think it's fake. Gasps, whispers. Tom actually leaned forward like he was about to touch it. Karen didn't flinch. If anything, her smile widened. Oh, impressive. But anyone can buy a badge online. Anyone can memorize a number. That doesn't make you FBI. Before I could answer, Henry rose beside me, moving with the quiet authority of a man who'd once commanded entire task forces. He reached into his own folder, because of course he had one, and laid out a spread of documents that looked like something from a museum commendation service records, retirement credentials stamped with federal seals. Victor Henry Bennett, he said evenly, Senior Special Agent, Financial Crimes Division, 30 years, 207 convictions, never lost a case. The room went dead silent. Betty's hand flew to her mouth. Tom muttered something that sounded like holy crap. Jennifer's coffee cup hit the table with a soft clink. For a moment, just a moment, I thought the tide had turned. Then Karen laughed. Not a nervous chuckle, not an awkward giggle, a full throaty laugh that sent chills crawling up my spine. Oh, this is better than I imagined, she said, eyes gleaming like a predator who'd just cornered its prey. 2 generations of fakes, father and son running their little con, right under our noses. Do you really think parading around with laminated paper makes you untouchable? She stepped closer, voice dropping to a venomous whisper. You should have stayed invisible, Lucas. You should have left the past buried. But you didn't, and now I own this narrative. She straightened, addressing the room again. Neighbors, this is exactly how criminal organizations operate. They hide behind authority, intimidate anyone who questions them, and use their fake credentials to dodge accountability. Are we going to let that happen here? A few heads nodded. Others looked away conflicted. Karen was good. Too good. She'd spent years perfecting the art of manipulation, and tonight she was conducting a symphony of fear. I glanced at Henry. His jaw was set, but his eyes burned with something fierce. This wasn't just about protecting our family anymore. This was about ending a threat he thought he'd neutralized decades ago. As the meeting dissolved into hushed conversations, Karen leaned in for one final strike, her voice low enough for only us to hear. You think this ends with the meeting? No, gentlemen, this ends when I've taken everything you love and burned it to the ground. She walked out like a queen, dismissing her court, leaving a trail of tension in her wake. That was the moment I realized something vital. This wasn't a battle for reputation. It was a war for survival, and Karen Linda had just declared it. When we got home from the meeting, the house felt different. Not physically same beige walls, same hum of the fridge, but the air was heavy charged like the seconds before a thunderstorm. Layla was curled on the couch, hugging her knees, her tablet glowing with neighborhood notifications. Dad, she said, voice tight. Karen posted again. I took the tablet. My stomach knotted. The headline, Community Safety Alert, Beware of Fake Federal Agents. Below it, a collage of our faces, our house, my badge with a caption that made my blood run cold. Anyone can buy authority. Real neighbors protect each other. The post had 62 comments and counting. Half the neighborhood had shared it. Henry read over my shoulder, his jaw tightening. She's weaponizing fear. Classic move. She did the same thing with investors before I took her down. Spread doubt, isolate the target, control the narrative. Layla looked at me with wide eyes. What do we do? For the first time since this started, I had an answer. We stopped playing defense. Henry arched an eyebrow. Go on, she's overconfident, I said. She thinks she's controlling the board, but she's leaving fingerprints everywhere, digital trails, verbal threats, financial patterns. You taught me that, Dad, the arrogance of predators is their weakness. Henry's eyes glinted with something I hadn't seen in years, a spark. What's your angle? I leaned forward. We turn this HOA circus into a federal case. We don't just clear our names. We dismantle whatever network she's built since prison. He nodded slowly like a general approving a battle plan. We'll need leverage, evidence she can't spin. Already working on it, I said, pulling out my laptop. Started a trace the second she posted about me. Her IP bounces through 3 VPNs, but the payment for those HOA improvement projects, that's local. Bank records, subcontractor invoices, all connected to her alias. Henry smiled a sharp, dangerous smile. That's my boy. Before we could strategize further, Layla piped up. I might have something. She hesitated, then held out her phone. I was in the yard earlier, and I heard Karen on her porch. So I recorded it. She tapped play. Karen's voice crackled through the speaker low, and Venomous Phase 2 starts tomorrow. Once I discredit the Bennetts, the new fee structure passes, and we take control. No more resistance, no more oversight. Henry's brows shot up. Smart kid. Layla shrugged. You guys always say pay attention to details. That recording was gold proof. This wasn't about grass height or mailbox colors. It was a hostile takeover, a con wrapped in HOA bylaws. Henry leaned back, eyes on me. Time to escalate. But before we could act, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered, and a voice like oil slid through the line. Nice badge display tonight, Agent Bennett, Karen purred. The neighbors ate it up. Shame the feds won't. You really should have kept a lower profile. I kept my tone flat. You're making a mistake. Oh, sweetheart, she said, voice dripping with amusement. I don't make mistakes. I make moves. And my next one, let's just say it involves a friend at Channel 9 who loves an underdog story. Tomorrow the world will know you as a fraud. Click. Henry exhaled slowly. She's pulling media. Once that narrative goes public, we're not just fighting a neighborhood, we're fighting perception. Then we get ahead of it, I said. If she wants a show, we'll give her one with receipts. By midnight, our kitchen had become a war room. Files spread across the table, laptops glowing with data trails. Henry dug out his old case notes, names, dates, connections that might resurface. I compiled Karen's digital footprint, mapping her activity across 3 states. Layla, bless her fearless heart, sketched out a timeline on the whiteboard like a junior analyst. This isn't just about us anymore, Henry said, tapping a folder labeled Ross v. United States. She's running the same scam on a bigger scale. HOA fraud, elder exploitation, laundering through fake contractors. We expose this, we save more than our reputation. For the first time in days, I felt the tide shift not in our favor yet, but toward possibility. Because now we weren't just targets, we were hunters. The plan was simple: gather irrefutable evidence, hand it to the Bureau, and let Karen hang herself with her own rope. But deep down, I knew nothing about this would be simple. Karen wasn't just fighting for revenge, she was fighting for power control and the illusion she'd built brick by brick. And people like her, they don't surrender, they escalate. Sure enough, as dawn bled across the horizon, my phone lit up with a new notification. A neighborhood live stream. Karen standing on her lawn, flanked by supporters. Her voice ringing clear, justice is coming to Oak Ridge Lane. Tomorrow we take back our community. Henry met my eyes over his coffee mug. She's accelerating the timeline. Then so do we, I said, locking eyes with my father. It's time to end this. Morning came with a storm, not in the sky, but in the neighborhood. Karen had turned Oak Ridge Lane into a stage, and every porch was a front row seat. Her live stream ran on every community group, painting us as frauds, hiding behind shiny badges and lies. Neighbors who once borrowed sugar were now avoiding eye contact, whispers trailing us like shadows. Henry stood by the window, arms crossed, watching the growing crowd on Karen's lawn. She's building an army, he muttered. Same tactics she used before divide, isolate, conquer. Layla looked up from her serial voice, small. Dad, are they going to make us leave? That question hit harder than any of Karen's accusations. I knelt beside her, forcing a steady voice. No, sweetheart. We're not going anywhere. This is our home. But inside, doubt gnawed. Running would be easy, safe, yet every instinct screamed that leaving wasn't just surrender. It was feeding the monster. Karen thrived on fear. If we ran, she'd do it again to someone else. That wasn't happening on my watch. I turned to Henry. We go public, our terms, not hers. He raised an eyebrow. You're proposing a counter narrative. Not just that I said grabbing my laptop. Full transparency. We expose her live. Every lie, every scam. If she wants an audience, let's give them the truth. Henry studied me for a beat, then nodded slowly. Risky. She'll come at us harder. Then we hit harder back. For the next 12 hours, we became a three-person task force. Henry dove into his old archives, pulling case files that tied Linda Ross to embezzlement ring shell companies and bogus charities. I compiled digital evidence screenshots of her HOA improvement projects, payment trails to offshore accounts, and that golden audio Layla captured. Layla, bless her fearless heart, asked, "Can I help?" I hesitated this wasn't a game, but then Henry surprised me. You already have, he said, placing a hand on her shoulder. You noticed what the adults missed. That's how good agents start. She grinned, a flash of pride in the middle of chaos. And in that moment, something shifted. This wasn't just about clearing our names anymore. It was about showing my daughter what integrity looks like under fire. By evening, our kitchen looked like a command center. Whiteboards lined with timelines, folders stacked like sandbags, screens glowing with data. Henry briefed me like it was Quantico all over again: threat assessments, contingency plans, psychological profiles. The man might have traded a badge for gardening gloves, but the operative in him never retired. You ready for this? He asked. I looked at Layla, who was coloring a poster that read, Truth Wins. Then back at Henry. More than ever. We launched the live stream at 7 p.m., same time Karen planned her truth rally. My opening line was simple: neighbors you deserve, facts not fear. Then I laid it out: my credentials, Henry's legacy, screenshots of Karen's digital smear campaign, the recording of her plotting a takeover, and finally the bombshell federal records confirming Linda Ross's conviction for embezzling $2 million from children's medical funds. The comments exploded. Wait, what? She lied to us. I trusted her. Karen tried to hijack the stream, flooding the feed with accusations. But then came the clip, her own voice. Phase 2 starts tomorrow. Once I discredit the Bennetts, the new fee structure passes and we take control. Silence. Then outrage, but this time not at us. Phones started turning. Cameras aimed at Karen, not our house. Her supporters peeled away, like rats abandoning a sinking ship. The Queen of Oak Ridge Lane was crumbling live. Henry leaned back, arms folded, a satisfied glint in his eye. Textbook reversal, he murmured. But the victory didn't feel like fireworks. It felt like a storm, breaking quiet, heavy, necessary. And as Layla hugged me tight, whispering, You were amazing, I realized something profound. Strength isn't just standing your ground. It's choosing the fight worth standing for. For Henry, that fight started decades ago with a promise to uphold justice. For me, it was proving that legacy matters, not for the bureau, not for headlines, but for the kid looking up at you deciding who to become. And for Layla, her fight was learning that courage doesn't come from badges or titles. It comes from refusing to let fear write your story. Karen thought she could weaponize fear. Instead, she handed us a reason to rise higher. But as the live stream ended and our neighbors began to rally around us, a single question echoed in my mind, one that would haunt me long after the cameras stopped rolling. If Linda spent 25 years planning this, what else had she planned that we hadn't uncovered yet? The fallout was immediate and surreal. One day, Karen ruled Oak Ridge Lane like a dictator in Lululemon. The next, she was standing on her porch in full view of flashing blue lights, her empire collapsing in real time. Officer Davis arrived with 2 patrol cars, his expression taut with professional caution. Neighbors spilled into their yards, phones raised, hungry for the climax of the drama they'd been binge-watching for weeks. Karen strutted toward him, clutching her infamous clipboard like a shield. Officer, she declared, voice carrying like a megaphone, arrest them. Impersonating federal agents, threatening a community leader, these criminals think they're above the law. Henry stepped out before I could stop him, calm, measured, devastating. He handed Davis a leather case. Inside, his retirement credentials, embossed seals glinting under the sun. Senior Special Agent Victor Henry Bennett, he said, voice steady as granite. 30 years of service, verified by Quantico. Davis's brows shot up. Sir, you're that Bennett. The closer we studied your cases at the academy. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Tom, who'd once parroted Karen's lies, muttered something that sounded like holy hell. Phone zoomed in. Streams blew up. And for the first time, Karen faltered. This means nothing, she sputtered. Documents can be faked. He's lying. I stepped forward, flipping open my badge, then checked mine. Special Agent Lucas Bennett, Financial Crimes Division, badge number 5124. Call Quantico if you think it's fake. Davis didn't call. He didn't need to. The weight of the evidence was crushing, and Karen knew it. Her manic energy curdled into rage as Davis turned toward her. Ma'am, we need to talk about the allegations against you, he said evenly, and about your real name, Linda Ross. The silence that followed was deafening. Birds chirped. A lawnmower buzzed 2 streets over. And then Betty, sweet old Betty, whispered the word that detonated like a grenade. Linda Karen's mask shattered. She spun eyes, blazing voice cracking with venom. He ruined my life. 15 years in a cage because of him. And you fools, you let him waltz in here like some hero. I gave you power. I gave you order. Neighbors recoiled, horror dawning as the truth sank in. Every HOA fee, every threat, every smear campaign, it had all been a con, orchestrated by a woman hell-bent on vengeance. Davis read her rights as he cuffed her, but Karen never stopped talking. You think this ends with handcuffs, you think you've won. I planned this for 25 years. Every move, every piece calculated. You don't even know the half of it. Her words slithered under my skin like ice, because there was something in her tone, not despair but triumph. Like even in defeat, she'd played a move we hadn't seen. As the patrol car pulled away, neighbors swarmed us apologies, handshakes, casseroles already promised. Betty hugged Henry, tears streaking her cheeks. Henry, I'm so sorry. We trusted her. Henry gave a tired smile. Trust isn't a weakness, Betty. It's what makes communities strong. We just have to be smarter about who earns it. For the first time in weeks, the weight on my chest eased. Not because Karen was gone, but because we'd reclaimed something bigger than reputation. We'd reclaimed our story. That night, sitting on the porch with Henry and Layla, I realized how much had changed. The neighbors weren't just waving, they were standing with us. Layla was laughing again, sketching Agent Sam badges for the neighborhood kids. And Henry? He looked lighter, like a man who'd finally laid a ghost to rest. But later, as I closed the door and glanced at the stack of files on our kitchen table, a thought gnawed at me. Karen had resources connections. She'd spent 25 years planning revenge. People like that don't just vanish into prison bars. They leave ripples. And as if the universe wanted to confirm my fears the next morning, brought a letter postmarked from a federal correctional facility. The neighborhood was never random. Check your basement. Some games take longer to finish than others. LR. Henry stared at it, his face carved in stone. Lucas, he said quietly, this isn't over. And just like that, the war we thought we'd won revealed itself for what it really was, the opening act. Trust is the backbone of every community, but blind trust is a loaded gun. Karen Linda proved how easily authority can be weaponized when no one questions the person holding it. She didn't need violence to control an entire neighborhood. All she needed was fear rules and a voice that sounded certain. That's what makes manipulation so dangerous. It doesn't come from strangers in dark alleys. It comes from people who seem like friends, who smile while they strip away your choices. The real lesson: strength isn't about avoiding conflict. It's about knowing when to stand your ground and when to fight back. Because predators thrive on silence. They bank on good people doing nothing. When you confront them with truth loud, clear, undeniable, you take away their greatest weapon: control. If you're part of a community, HOA, workplace, school board, pay attention. Ask questions even when it feels awkward. Transparency should never offend honest people. If someone reacts with hostility when asked for proof or accountability, that's your first red flag. Document everything: texts, emails, financial statements. Predators rely on chaos. Facts dismantle their power. And most importantly, don't fight alone. Build alliances with people who value truth over gossip. The louder the lie, the stronger the truth needs to be. Protect your peace, but never surrender it to fear.